Terrific. Awesome. Well, our next topic here is tomorrow's IT leader. And we're going to talk specifically about one topic, and that's the transition from a tactical master into a strategic innovator. This is a journey that a lot of you are on right now. Let's talk about tactical masters. I would guess, and maybe I'm wrong, but I guess that a good preponderance of the folks attending here today are in this tactical master class. And what do we mean by that? We mean that you're focused on consistent delivery, that business objectives, whether they're projects, infrastructure, services, whole applications are delivered on time, on budget, on scope, and that risk is contained and is top of mind. That leads to predictable performance. We know that SLAs are always going to be met, and that if we have a surge in demand, that burst capacity is ready and available. We're continuously monitoring systems, continuously tuning them to make sure that the products and services that we're bringing to our customers are always there. That leads us to be able to do precise reaction. Should something change, an outage, God forbid, a security breach, or something changing in customer behavior, we're going to notice that immediately, be able to reach in and do an event correlation to figure out exactly what's going on, root cause analysis, where do we need to go, and then we're going to remediate that. Maybe it's automated, maybe it's manual, and then after the dust is all settled, we're going to figure out how do we improve the process so that doesn't happen again. This makes us a very, very reliable business partner. The business can come to us. We can make sure that these applications are deployed on a timely, cost-efficient, and secure fashion. That's the tactical master. Again, I think a lot of us are at this stage right here, and this is what we would put in our job description were someone to ask us what it is exactly that we deliver to the business to earn our paychecks. Let me tell you about another one. This is a rare breed. This is the strategic innovator. And you're going to notice a slight difference between the tactical master and the strategic innovator. First thing is consistent ideation, always challenging the status quo. There's a really intelligent gentleman out there by the name of Jeff DeGraff that defined innovation as being positive deviance. And I think those two words sum up innovation, certainly in the enterprise, certainly in business. And the strategic innovator is constantly looking for that deviance. How do we not just accept the status quo? How do we start going beyond that? And is it positive? Is this just change for the sake of change? Is this just a new project because we had budget left over in Q4? What exactly is positive about it? What is that more perfect future that we're targeting? Once that's been established, the strategic innovator is all about incubation. How do we take these ideas? How do we start to sandbox them? How do we start evaluating the risks that are inherent in this? How can we predictably tell when we're incubating some new innovation, some new technology, some new process, some new skill set? How do we know that we're going to get those positive results? Now, luckily, there are a lot of tools that are coming onto the market right now that are helping us do this in a much more predictable way. For those of you that have read Eric Ries's book, Lean Startup, you know all about A/B testing and how we can go ahead and do incremental deployments. But the creation of this predictable incubation, creating that test bed where that can happen, that is a key characteristic of the strategic innovator. Now, the tactical master is focused on precise reaction. We're now talking about precise prediction. Where is the market going? Where should we be deviating towards, the proverbial skating where the puck is? How do we predict what our competition is doing, what our customers desire? How do we predict the capabilities and the amount of risk that we can take on without being fickle? How can we predict where our company is going to have to be to meet tomorrow's market? And this is both for opportunities, but also identifying and predicting threats. We think the competition is going to be able to roll this out. You heard in our discussion with Enrique the inherent advantage that some challenger companies have over the incumbents because they get to start with a clean slate and implement some of the latest technologies towards some of the latest targets. Is that a threat for our company? How do we fend off the challengers in our space? This allows us to be a business catalyst. So not just a business enabler, but an actual catalyst where ideas are being taken to the business. Hey, what if we did this? We're expanding this art of the possible. What if we were able to offer a service? What if we were able to deliver our products in a new consumption model? That's what a strategic innovator is. Now, I do want to point out something very, very key here. This is not an either or. This is not, oh, well, am I going to be a tactical master or a strategic innovator? It turns out that tactical masters are what is the seed for strategic innovators. Said another way, you cannot be a strategic innovator unless you are a tactical master. So again, this isn't an either or. This is a maturation process. This is a capability expansion. So for those of you out there as tactical masters, I'd like to challenge you to think about what it's going to take to grow into that strategic innovator inside of your business, inside of your industry, and certainly on a personal level. What does that mean? That's a challenge I'm going to throw out to you guys. Okay. Why? Why exactly would you want to do this? This sounds like a lot of work. It sounds like maybe a little bit out of the traditional comfort zone. Why exactly would I want to change from a tactical master into a strategic innovator? What is the what is the driver for this? And why now? Why not wait for a couple of years? Why not tackle this later once the company is a little more mature or after I get that next rung in the ladder? Why now? Why is it an imperative now? The first thing is technical convergence. So back in the good old days, when Enrique was starting his first company, we had these nice little technical silos, whether they're data, infrastructure, operations, or security. They tended to be kind of focused on a different problem for the business. They tended to deliver a set of capabilities to the business that could then be clicked together like Lego blocks into delivering some product or service to the customers. Well, we're starting to see a big shift that it's no longer, let's pick on security. It's no longer acceptable to say, well, I'm a security person and I deal with security, and this is kind of where my borders are and when I stop. You guys all know this, that in your company, security is everybody's business. And the same thing, let's pick on data. You can't say where data ends and infrastructure begins and security is and privacy steps in. We're starting to see a blurring of a lot of these organizational silos. Infrastructure, for instance, is this on-prem or are we talking infrastructure in the cloud, some sort of hybrid? We talked about OT, we talked about IoT, the edge. What do we mean by infrastructure? And of course, as you guys know, the answer is yes, all of the above. So being able to go in and say, well, we kind of do networking on-prem, that just is no longer a tenable silo. So because all of these areas are converging, being a tactical master in a particular discipline is no longer tenable. You're going to have to become a tactical master in several different areas of expertise and disciplines. That is more of a strategic innovator. That is being thrust upon you. Staying in your swim lane and being, an inch wide and a mile deep probably is not going to cut it anymore. The other thing that's going on, not just with organizational and disciplinary melding that's happening, we're also seeing the tech stacks go exactly that way. Some of the traditional tech stacks out there, let's say Oracle for database or VMware for virtualization or Microsoft for desktop operating systems. Those types of tech stacks are under considerable threat by the challengers. Whether it's, you guys have all seen the big valuation for Snowflake rolling out. I'm imagining that most of you have some sort of Snowflake project underway, and how we secure that. How do we actually move from an on-prem model for our data enterprise warehouse or Hadoop cluster? How do we move into something more lakehouse? How do we incorporate like a Databricks and some of the new technologies that are rolling out? How do we secure it with cloud-based security products like, say, a Lacework, for instance? That technology stack is shifting. And again, the new technology stacks are built on the assumption that these all coexist and blur together. So therefore, our implementation of solutions using those security stacks are also going to have to meld together. Again, that's more of a strategic innovator type of approach rather than a tactical master. Here's an interesting one. Over the past year and a half, us technologists, we kind of made a little bit of a mistake, and we showed the business how awesome we can be. In going from business as usual into lockdown, into transitioning into a remote workforce, into securing the new perimeter, which now includes everyone's second bedroom. How exactly are we going to pull this off? I think early days in the lockdown, you guys lived through this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But in the early days, a little bit of let's take inventory, let's come up with a plan, and let's just start knocking off our objectives one at a time. Lo and behold, you guys pulled off a miracle. Most companies were able to transition and unleash a remote workforce. Now, we all know behind the scenes, there's a lot of duct tape, baling wire, bubble gum that pulled this off. Then kind of in that second wave, going in and securing it and making sure communications are happening by VPN. Oh my gosh, the marketing folks swiped their credit cards and bought how many SaaS services out there? How do we collapse that back into something we control? So kind of the dust settling phase. I think most of us are out of that phase now. But that was a big eye opener for a lot of the corporate executives and our line of business leaders, that we showed those superpowers. We showed that we could leap tall buildings in a single bound. And by the way, kudos to you guys. There are a lot of companies out there that are still running because of efforts that you guys put in, the long weekends, the creative ideas, the patching, the production outages, and the diving catches in the back of the end zone. That's huge. But that has really changed the way that the business take a look at what we're able to accomplish. So what we're seeing now is that trend continuing on, with shifting from on-prem incumbent stacks to whole ecosystems in cloud platforms. We talked briefly about the Snowflake ecosystem. There's another parallel one, the HashiCorp stack, that's also forming up. This constellation, this gravitational coalescing into these technology stacks, and companies are taking a look at how exactly to accomplish that. We're also seeing a flip from more of a CapEx to an OpEx. Now, this has been going on for a number of years and driving our CFOs absolutely bonkers. But that switching from, instead of buying and depreciating capital assets, into shifting things over into as a service, that monthly expense. That trend has been ongoing, and it just hockey stick inflection point during the past year and a half. Now, that's had a lot of business implications, but one of the big ones in this switching over to an as a service type of a model is it's made the IT, the cybersecurity, and the data teams business partners, along with our finance office, on how exactly to optimize this cost. How exactly can we get more bang for the buck that we're spending, and how do we bring this in and get financial controls, governance? How do we pull that all together? And you guys are doing a tremendous job in pulling that off. Another trend going on that we get to flex our muscles a little bit is this transition to the use of open source and external APIs wherever possible. I think a lot of companies are embracing, let's say, that Git economy, if you will. How exactly do we use open source in our environment such that we don't have to build everything ourselves? I think that that's a powerful trend that's going on. And again, something that most of the technical organizations out there are very equipped to take on. But here's an interesting one. This is a term I'm totally ripping off, hence why I put it in the quotation marks. We are also in a golden age of investment. Right now, venture capitalists like Enrique that we just had on, and we do have VCs in an upcoming segment of MTEK from Lightspeed, from Bain, from that we just had on, from we've got folks coming in from City Ventures. It's just really an all-star cast that we've got to assemble here. Mayfield Fund is where this quote actually comes from. You're going to hear from Camille later on. So I hope I'm not stealing any of his thunder. But he talks about the golden age of investment. And what we mean by that is investments happening at an alarming rate. Alarming, I'm saying from an enterprise point of view, because this means that about a year to a year and a half from now, we're going to have a tidal wave of startups that jump out there. How fast? Well, right now, we are forming in the startup ecosystem a unicorn every day. That's the pace that things are going on right now. This is an order of magnitude greater change than we have ever seen in the history of IT in the 50, 60, 70 years since folks have been dabbling with computers. Never has investment been so feverish, so high. We talked earlier with Enrique about the valuations that are out there. There's a lot of money. That means a lot of startups who normally would only get 1, 2, 3 at bats before they ran out of pitches are now getting 5, 6, 7. They're now getting funding into later rounds at a higher rate of investment. This means for the enterprise, we are going to see very compelling products and a lot of them that are going to be coming at us within the next year. Now, if you're a tactical master, how exactly are you going to digest this? How exactly are you going to be able to exploit the advantage that these new startups are going to be bringing to market? How are you going to sift through the wheat from the chaff? Now, remember the characteristics of our strategic innovator. They're consistently looking for that positive deviance. They're consistently incubating new ideas, and they're consistently predicting where things are going to go. For the strategic innovator, this is going to be the greatest age that they'll probably see inside their careers. So that's why the change is necessary, and that's why the change is happening now. So if we take a look, though, there's a bit of a gap between being a tactical master and being a strategic innovator. And this gap is formidable for most folks looking to make this maturation. And of course, the reason is because on the tactical master side, we're reactive. Look, predictability and consistency are our hallmarks. We're solution focused. Bring us a problem, we'll figure out how to solve it. And in our production environments, failure is just not an option. We're going to wait for the business or our customers to tell us about a change that's needed, and we're going to put that in place on budget, on time, on capacity, with risk being contained. Now, you can kind of see that mindset against its counterpart in the strategic innovator side. We're talking about proactively disrupting your own systems, your own services and products. We're talking about innovation, that positive deviance. There's more of a focus on the problem with the assumption that if we can articulate and identify the problem better than anyone in our industry, we can get smart people to implement a solution for that. So problem focused. And of course, failure being necessary. You've heard all the buzzwords: fail forward, fail fast, run with scissors and break things. That's certainly the case. There is a proper way to fail. All failure sometimes is not healthy. Sometimes failure is frankly just failure. But failing onto a better iteration, that sort of philosophy is crucial for our strategic innovators. And internally triggering disruption, going to the business and saying, what if we change this to a subscription model instead of a delivered software application, for instance? Or what if we took this internationally? What would be the privacy issues that we should start thinking about right now? That sort of internal disruption is a key characteristic. Well, that's certainly easy to say in a PowerPoint, but how exactly do you close those gaps? One of the areas that has really taken off over the past 5 years is innovation lifecycle management. There are several tools on the market that are very good about controlling ideation, prioritizing various ideas, scoping them out, articulating them, getting them into incubation. So the good news is there are tools on the market right now. Probably a good chunk of you have got those in your enterprise. If you don't, this is a terrific area for you to start evaluating. Start taking a look at these innovation lifecycle management tools to close that gap between consistent delivery and consistent ideation. Another gap that needs to be closed is the predictable performance to predictable incubation. Let me throw an idea out there that might be new to you folks. Design partnerships. Now, this is a venture and startup term. It's used quite a bit. Back in the day, might have been called alphas and betas. But the idea is that when that startup is in the prototyping phase, they've moved past PowerPoint and they're now starting to stub out the skeleton of a product. Quite frequently, they will team up with a target customer. Hey, we're looking to bring this financial service product into the insurance market. Let's go ahead and find a strategic innovator within the insurance industry that we can go and bounce ideas off of. Guidance when things are in skeletal form is so much more easier to implement and pivot and course correct than later when we've got a full-blown product out there. Well, now let's flip this around a little bit. In your enterprise, what would your company be an ideal design partner for? And could you bring some of those startups in to do that predictable incubation? So instead of taking a fully formed startup and seeing how you can use it, what might be a better approach would be, what if we could shape that startup to hit exactly the problems that we're trying to solve? That would give us a huge jump upon our competition. That would give us a better understanding of what the problem is. Maybe we learn about the problem that it's a little bit different than what we thought it was. Design partnerships. And of course, you're going to need an emerging tech sandbox in which to put these new tools, new processes, new technology stacks, and actually try them out. You may have an emerging tech sandbox. If you don't, again, coupled with the innovation management tools that we mentioned before, this is a great combination. So put that on your Christmas list. Moving from precise reaction to precise prediction, emerging tech advisory, bringing in someone who works in that venture world, that startup ecosystem, and even research firms and academia. What's coming over the horizon? What haven't we seen yet? How can I get a glimpse of the new things that are still, in the back room? Obviously, I think EVOTEK Labs is the industry leader on that. So I'll throw us out there as one solution to this particular area. But I do think that it's key to expand your vision beyond where your headlights are illuminating. Venture exchanges. How do I sit down with these venture firms and go through what they're looking at? Sitting down with someone like an Enrique or a Camille or a Guru or a Matt that you're going to meet in our next segment. How do I sit down with them and talk with them about how the targets they're looking for are changing? Why are they not investing in this type of startup, but they're doubled down on this other type? Why is that happening, and how does that affect my business? Again, that's going to help you reach things just a little outside of your arm length. And the last one, business enabler to business catalyst. Certainly inside your company, being able to have an open and honest discussion with your lines of business, with the finance department, with your executive staff, with your own internal implementers, having this roundtable where the ideation process is both on the problem and on the solution side. If you don't already have innovation roundtables or some other bidirectional conduit between the implementers and the actual users and consumers of this, this is very, very critical. So we talked about 6 different things that will help close that gap. We talked about innovation lifecycle management, great tools on the market right now. If you're interested in what some of those may be, certainly feel free to reach out to us. Design partnerships, getting that relationship set up with very early stage startups that could be critical, setting up an emerging tech sandbox and an advisory service. I think these are highly critical to actually see over the horizon and start kicking the tires on these, start putting some of the Lego blocks together. Venture exchanges where you kind of do the Jerry Maguire, show me the money, where the money's going, that's where the innovation is going, that's where these new disruptive startups are going to be coming from. Instead of being a victim of that, being caught by that, where your competition is implementing new technologies, instead be the beneficiary of that in an internal innovation roundtable. Again, I think that is a key step, one that you can start today. All right. That's great. That's wonderful. How can we find out more? I'm going to do a little commercial plug for Camille Grant. He's out of Mayfield Fund, one of the folks on our VC panel coming up. He has possibly one of the most insightful podcast series on this topic, CXO of the Future. You can get it on all of your major podcasting sites. Camille obviously has forgotten way more about this than I'll ever know, is the world expert in really moving this concept of what the technical executive of the future is going to look like. Let me throw out a little plug here for Technically Speaking. This is a podcast EVOTEK Labs puts on. You can go to LinkedIn, look up Technically Speaking, TEK, just like EVOTEK. Isn't that cute and nifty? This is a different type of a podcast. We look at emerging tech, and our episodes are only 1 coffee cup in length, 4 minutes. That's our limit. So you won't get into long diatribes. Again, the idea here is that as you're opening up your morning email and you've got your nice French roast in front of you, that you throw this on and find out what's going on in using DNA to store data. April tags for real-time identification of real-world assets in the IoT world. Right now, we're in the middle of a series on conversational AI and how it's changing the healthcare industry. EVOTEK Labs, reach out to us if you have any questions on this. Easy to remember, labs@evotek.com. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. All right. I would just like to thank you all. You are tomorrow's IT leaders. If you are a strategic innovator, view this session as a kind of confirmation of where you're heading. If you're a tactical master, please feel free to use this as a roadmap to how you gain value, insights, and become that positive deviant with inside your customers. Now, I'll open it up to Q&A. I don't really see any questions in the queue right now, but certainly throw them in there, and in the next 30 seconds or so, I'll try to tackle them. If you have questions, if you're like me and you always think of the good questions right after the presentation, feel free to reach out to me personally, Mark at evotek.com or labs@evotek.com, or follow me on Twitter. I am the Hype Sniper, HYPESNYPER, the Hype Sniper.